You're listening to the Traffic and Conversion Show. I'm your host, Michelle Fernandez, and today I am sharing the real reason your marketing is not getting results. So stay tuned. Hey. All right, I got a question for you. Do you consider yourself a leader? Or have you considered that the lack of leadership is killing your marketing results? Now, when leadership, sales, and marketing are aligned, there is no end in sight to your business's potential growth. The challenge is getting there. Now, we all know that for every successful marketing campaign, there are probably like a half dozen or so that just aren't successful. And when our marketing campaigns fail, it's tough because as the entrepreneur, it like affects us deeply, right? Because this is like, if we don't have marketing, how are we going to get revenue? If we don't get new people into the funnel, how are we going to ever get revenue? How are we going to make sales? And sometimes the entrepreneur ends up feeling like quitting on their marketing efforts. However, they realize that it's desperately needed because the health of their company is so reliant on the ability to build brand awareness, drive action, and convert leads. And it usually looks or sounds something like this. Oh, we don't have a marketing budget, or oh, we don't have enough money to do that, right? We don't have enough visibility, or we don't have a big enough list or a big enough following on social. Here's the thing. What most leaders fail to see is that there's always a much deeper reason for marketing failures. And I can guarantee you that if you're not making one of these marketing leadership mistakes, you might be making more than one. Okay. Now, the first is that the business is not actually innovative. Now, when we're talking about innovative, right, we're talking about ways that we can stand out. We're talking about new ways. And it's hard to break through all this marketing clutter that exists today when you're doing something truly unique and innovative. Okay. Now, it's nearly impossible when you're solving the same problems in the same ways as a dozen other companies, right? So write down, underline it, and keep it at your desk. If you're not innovating as your company, your marketing will struggle. Okay. If you're not constantly looking for new ways to stand out, new ways to be innovative, you will eventually die. Okay. Let's just think about Kodak, right? If maybe I'm dating myself, some of you younger people are like, wait, what's Kodak? Okay. So Kodak used to be a brand of film. So literally like you had a camera, not your phone, and then you would put in this film, right? Like movie film. And then you would take the pictures. You were limited to like like 8, 16, 36. Like 36 was the maximum number of pictures that you can take. Okay, I'm sidetracking right now, but I remember being super selective about, okay, how many pictures you're going to take. Like think about it now on your phone, you're like, and you're hitting the button over and over again, just so in case you get that perfect angle, where back then it wasn't like that. However, Kodak did not move forward with all this digital stuff. So even before we went into our phones, now we had these digital discs that we would put into the cameras, and then we had more than 36 photos that we can take on that camera. So when you're not evolving or being innovative, you start to die out, okay? So I want to share with you 5 ways to create strategic innovation that I learned in Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. Now, these are things that every 7 weeks comes up on my calendar on how I can be more innovative. So I sit down, I answer these 5 questions with myself and then with my team. Okay. And what I love about revisiting them is because sometimes we're like so stuck in something and we can't think of it, right? So it's like coming back to it. Sometimes we have interactions within that 7 weeks, whether it be with customers in our masterminds, right? What is happening? So here are the 5 questions. Ready? New voices. So what are the new voices coming in? What are new questions that either you can ask or being asked of you? What are new perspectives? What are different ways of seeing what you're doing? What are some new passions that you have? And what are maybe some new things you want to experience? Okay. So again, every 7 weeks, get with your team and revisit these to get some new ideas that are derived from coaching calls, webinars, team meetings, customer supports, you name it. You be thinking about it and putting it together. The second is your customers' marketing efforts are just not authentic. They're very inauthentic. In today's environment, customers are informed, they're aware, and they're connected to companies they do business with, and they expect to be able to have a dialogue with brands that they buy from. And they also expect authenticity and transparency in every interaction. It's like it's like those dogs that can sniff out things. They can tell when you're not being you're not being authentic, right? You can probably tell when you're not being your true self. When you're copying what other people are doing because you're like, oh, they must be killing it. They must be making the money. I need to do this too. Well, is that really aligned with how you want to be, how you want to be seen, what your brand is about? Because they can smell that all day long. I remember this was a few years ago. There was somebody that I was like, I kind of found on social and I was like, oh my gosh, she talks like me. She sounds like me. This is going to be great. And then when I actually met her, I was like, womp womp. I was so disappointed because she was not like that in real life. She didn't talk. It was almost like she put on this whole persona to draw people in, and she was not even like that. And I was so disappointed because I was like, oh, I felt like I was connecting with her even without communication, like actually talking. And it just didn't feel that way. And I got quickly turned off, okay? Because I could smell that she was not being authentic. Now, in order to succeed in today's environment, your brand needs to really have heart, personality, and give your customers something bigger and meaningful to be a part of. So you might be saying, well, I'm not one of these personalities that will go out, or I don't want to get on and be inauthentic and pretend like I'm, this bubbly personality. If I'm not, well, guess what? Sometimes I'm bubbly and people don't like that. They're like, okay, Michelle, calm down. You're being too whatever. You're being too hyper for me right now. Like, take it down a notch, right? So it's okay. Be who you are and really come with your heart, and people will just feed off of that because they will feel that from you. Okay. Making them seem like it's something bigger to be a part of. The third is the company is failing to make an impact. So is your company making an impact? Are you giving back in some way, shape, or form? And if so, do people know that you are? It doesn't have to be anything huge. Instead of donating, you can coordinate or bring awareness to something, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, it's not in our budget to do XYZ or to host an event or do whatever. It doesn't have to be that way. You can partner with somebody else that maybe is doing something and bring, awareness to it and then do the donation that way, right? So just think about what it is that maybe you'd like to do. It doesn't mean you have to step out and do it tomorrow. You can just maybe pull your audience. Hey, I was thinking about doing XYZ. Which would you want to do? And maybe you do all three, and then you plan it throughout the year. Just whatever you do it with sincerity and authenticity. Number 4 is to make marketing campaigns based on your feelings rather than the data and insight. So this is a huge mistake that people do. They go with their feelings. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, here comes the drama, right? And not putting you down if you do, because I'm totally guilty of that too. And I've really been working on getting rid of the drama in my life. So I always pick the data over the drama. Okay. So you must track and you must measure. There are so many tools that you have access to that there's no excuse not to do that. And most people, they don't even try. They're just overwhelmed by it all. And by sticking with that perspective and either not learning how to do it or finding someone to do it for them, it's kind of like, it's no wonder why they're failing, right? So think about that with you. Are you failing because you're like, oh, I just don't want to do. I can't tell you how many people I talk to where I'm like, oh, this, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Oh, that's just not my personality. Like, I'm not into that, right? Or I don't want to learn, or I'd rather just pay someone to do it. But are you paying somebody to do it, right? So think about that. Okay, the last is that there's no plan. People don't plan. We all suffer from this whole shiny object syndrome. Okay, it's like a real thing. We all suffer from it. And it's so easy to go on to the next tactic or the next strategy that someone else is doing with the hopes that you're going to get better results. Because you're like, well, wait, I'm sitting here doing this webinar every week live, and I'm not really making sales, but so-and-so is doing this other thing and then they're killing it. So what happens? You stop the weekly live, you go do the evergreen or you go do something else. And then you're like, well, wait, this isn't working either. Oh, so-and-so says this. So now I'm going to go do that. Right. I think we've all been guilty of that at some way, shape, or form. However, if you're not starting with a marketing plan, you're definitely destined to fail, period. Now, don't kill your marketing success before it has a chance to succeed by failing to create and stick to a plan. Start with your plan by asking a few questions. What do you want to achieve? What KPIs are you going to measure? Who is your audience and what do they actually care about, right? And spoiler alert, they don't care about you, right? What is the thing that is going to sell your thing? And what's your budget? And what kind of return do you expect to see? And how will you measure the success? Now, I could list many more questions that you do need to ask yourself to create a marketing plan. However, those are really essential to get it started, right? To get your wheels turning, to kind of put things into perspective, and definitely look to get started on planning. It's time to play big. So make some big moves and start with one of the things that we talked about today. One of the things this week, put it on your calendar and do at least one. And then put the rest on your calendar to do a different day, okay? I appreciate you so much for being here with me today. And if you got value out of today's episode, please be sure to leave me an honest review on iTunes. All right, until next time, let's grow your business together.